Welcome, everybody, and welcome back to The Hit. And before I get into this, I just want to say that for all the people that have watched this in the past, the 6 or 7 episodes that we've put out, thank you for watching. It really means a lot. It really does. For the time being, because we're in 2 different locations, The Hit with Higgins and Bonnie is just going to be The Hit with Higgins. And Bonnie knows this, and we're going to figure out a way to do this together at some point again. But for the time being, it's just going to be The Hit with Higgins, or just The Hit. Whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to tell people it's called is fine with me. But I just want to thank everybody again who watched. I want to thank all the guys and people who told me that I should keep doing this, namely the people on my lacrosse team, the Mercy men's lacrosse team. You guys are awesome. Thank you for watching it. Thank you for supporting it. And thank you for telling me to do it again, which is why I'm doing this today. And now every week you will see a new podcast from me, Higgins, talking all types of sports. Today we're going to focus mainly on football with a couple of other sports mixed in to the bigger stories that I'm going to be discussing, but mainly football. But again, thank you. I promise to keep updating my YouTube channel, my Instagram, Twitter. Make sure to follow it. We have accounts all over, and I'll make sure to post this on my main accounts so for people who haven't seen it can go and watch and share it with your friends. I'd really appreciate it. You don't have to. Not requiring it, but it would be awesome. But the first thing I want to talk about today is a guy who went to my high school, was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft in 2015, and a guy who has had definitely not a storybook NFL career. And for guys from my high school, guys who played football at my high school like I did, they know who I'm talking about already, and that's Kevin White. And Kevin White on Sunday had the biggest play of his NFL career. He caught a 38-yard pass from Trevor Siemian to get a first down, helped the Saints win the game, and it was huge. It was so cool to watch live on TV. It was awesome because someone from your high school that makes it big like that, it's so cool to watch. It's awesome. Somebody from the small area of Emmaus, Allentown, McCungie, whatever you want to call it, Pennsylvania, made it out, chased his dream, and was a top 10 pick in the NFL, and seeing him do that on Sunday was amazing. And for NFL fans, they know the struggles that Kevin White has had in his NFL career. Rookie year, injury. Second year, injury. Third year, injury. Fourth year with the Cardinals, was with the Bears, now it's with the Cardinals, injury gets cut. So the 49ers winds up on the Saints this year with all the problems they've had at wide receiver. He ends up on the Saints and makes a super clutch play for the Saints to win that ball game. It's unreal. And first of all, I know he's not going to watch this, but Kevin, congrats, man. That's awesome. That is so cool. And what's even cooler is someone, not on any level, but as someone who has had his share of ups and downs in his athletic career, like myself, it's awesome to see. And I kind of relate to it. I haven't had the injury bug like he's had, but I kind of relate to it. And I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more on the broader scheme of a bust. And before I go into it, I want to preface this by saying Kevin White is not a bust. Not in the slightest. And I mean that because a bust to me is somebody who comes into a professional league with such high expectations and doesn't fulfill them. Kevin White is not a bust because he never got the chance. Injuries are a part of the NFL. But when you break your fibula and your tibia, that's just dumb luck. That's crazy. And he can't control that. That's absurd. You know, there's something to be said about taking care of your body to prevent the little injuries. But when you're breaking bones in your leg that are very, very, very hard to break, he's not a bust. And if I'm saying he's not a bust, I mean guys like Greg Oden. Greg Oden is not a bust. And for casual NBA fans or hardcore NBA fans, you know who Greg Oden is. 2007, number 1 overall pick, taken directly ahead of Kevin Durant. He's a big center from Ohio State, and for his entire career, he battled knee injuries. And that's probably because he was 7'2", and he's a big dude. And he battled knee injuries throughout his entire career. But when he was on the court, he was productive. There's
Not a lot of people who can argue that. He was a productive NBA player at points in his career when he was healthy. The problem is he was never healthy enough to become the player that everybody thought he was going to be coming out of college. And it's hard, especially when you're picked in front of a guy who could be considered the best player in the NBA and has been one of the best players in the NBA since he entered the league. And I'm a big Nets fan. I love Kevin Durant. He's awesome. He is phenomenal. I just wish that if Greg had stayed healthy, we could have seen what he was going to do in the league. Another guy, for casual NFL fans, you definitely won't know who this guy is. There's a guy in 1995 named Kajana Carter. He was a running back at Penn State. And in 1995, the Cincinnati Bengals traded up from 5-1 to take this running back with the first pick. And in his, I want to say third preseason snap, first game, third preseason snap, he tears his ACL and MCL. Major blow. Especially, you're a running back. You need your knees. You need your knees to run. And he blew it, and it's so unfortunate. He never got healthy again. Not fully enough to where he was supposed to be the dynamic player that he was supposed to be. He never got to that point. And that's so frustrating, especially when a guy who you saw in college have that type of talent, have it taken away from him all because of some dumb AstroTurf at the Silverdome, which is Detroit Lions' old stadium. Have it taken away from him like that is painful. And I wasn't alive for this, but I can imagine that every Penn State fan and every Cincinnati Bengal fan during that time was crushed seeing that. And then aside from injury, I want to take you guys back to 2004. So 2004, the NFL draft had 3 potential Hall of Fame quarterbacks go in the top 12. Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Ben Roethlisberger. We're all in that draft, all in the top 12. Eli went first. The second pick was held by the then Oakland Raiders. And they took a tackle from Iowa named Robert Gallery. Again, not a lot of casual fans are going to know that name. Understandably so. He was a lineman, and to a lot of NFL analysts and scouts and coaches, he did not have the career he was supposed to have. But I will speak to this. He is not a bust, even though a lot of people consider him a bust. He's not a bust because, A, he was scouted at the wrong position coming into the league. He was taken to be a blue-chip left tackle for the Oakland Raiders. And he just wasn't fit to play tackle. He wasn't. He was a perfect fit for guard. And he was a very, very, very productive guard during his career with the Raiders. And actually, if you go and find it, I'll try and find it. Bill Belichick was talking to his coaches when the Raiders and Patriots had a joint practice, I want to say in 2009. And Bill Belichick spoke on this. He said, Robert Gallery played out of position for a couple years and didn't look good. And then the Raiders kicked him into guard and played very, very well. Also, there's something to be said about the incompetence of the Raiders organization from that time period, and even still today, as we've seen in the news over the past couple of weeks. The Raiders are not a very competent organization, and they drafted a guy who wasn't a tackle, number two, and they eventually moved him to guard. They smarted up and they did the right thing, but he was drafted to play the wrong position. And I think back to 2015, Washington took Brandon Scherf with the 5th overall pick, and he was also a tackle from the University of Iowa, and they drafted him at 5 to play guard right away. And Brandon Scherf is arguably a top 5 guard in the NFL. He is one of the highest paid. He's always been productive. He stays on the field. Washington took him at 5 with the intention of putting him at guard, made him a guard right away, and he has flourished. If the Raiders at 2 take Robert Gallery, slide him in guard right away, he could be in that conversation. He would have been in that conversation. I firmly believe that. So, busts are all circumstantial. Now, there are clear busts. Jamarcus Russell, obvious bust. We all know why. 300-pound quarterback who didn't like to work at his craft. Bust. Ryan Leaf fits the same mold. Didn't like to work at his craft. And everybody talks about the debate between Peyton Manning and Ryan Leaf in that 1998 draft. And Peyton Manning was the guy that came across as the hard worker, the leader, the excellent teammate. Ryan Leaf was the antithesis of all of those characteristics. They asked Peyton Manning what he would do if he was drafted number 1. And he said, I'd get right to work. I'd be in the film room. I'd be on the practice field. I'd be meeting my new teammates. I'd be ready to go. The Colts then asked Ryan Leaf that same question. And Ryan Leaf pondered for a second and said, I might go to Vegas, party with my boys, which honestly, I'm sure a lot of us would do the same thing, but not really the response you want to hear from your potential franchise quarterback. That's a bust. Anthony Bennett, 2013 NBA draft, number 1 overall pick. And that was a surprise pick to a lot of people. That draft at the time wasn't very strong coming in. You know, you had Giannis in that draft, you had Rudy Gobert in that class, CJ McCollum. But at the time, there was no clear-cut number 1 guy. Like, that is the man I want to lead my franchise. But the Cavs taking him at 1 was a very, very big surprise. And he was so bad. Oh, my God, he was so bad. He couldn't perform at all. You know, he was gone from Cleveland in a year. They traded him to Minnesota in the Kevin Love deal. He was out of Minnesota within the year. Bounced around the NBA, a couple G League teams. Was overseas. Not a good player. Bust. One last big example, Johnny Manziel, everybody's favorite college quarterback. The guy just had charisma, and he was so fun to watch on the field. And then he went to Cleveland. LeBron was hyping up the pick. So excited for his hometown football team to have their future guy at quarterback, and he was out of there in 2 years. He couldn't keep it together. Partying, everything, all the distractions that came his way, he could not withstand the temptation, and you see where his life is now. He's not in the NFL anymore, hasn't been for a long time. He was recently in that league that fans could pick the plays. I forget what the league's called. I wish I knew what it was called, but he was in that league, and he didn't play well in that league either, which is a damn shame. I know we all loved watching him in college, but those guys are bust. Greg Oden, Robert Gallery, Keyjana Carter, my man Kevin White, not busts. Unfortunate situations and unfortunate injuries, not busts. But that's all up for interpretation. That is not, what I'm saying right now is not hardcore facts, but I would think that a lot of people with reasoning would believe what I'm saying. Either way, it's all up for interpretation. Every draft in professional sports is a crapshoot to begin with. It's all based on circumstance and injuries and things like that. Like, there's so many things that you can't control. You know, I think back to 2017, Patrick Mahomes went to the Chiefs in the first round, and he has had such great success. But let's say Patrick Mahomes doesn't go to the Chiefs. What if the Bears at number 2 said, screw it, we're taking Patrick Mahomes at 2. I don't care about Mitch Trubisky, Deshaun Watson. I'm taking Patrick Mahomes at 2. Is Patrick Mahomes the same type of quarterback in Chicago without Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill? I don't know. He definitely would have the same talent level. His talent is unremarkable. Excuse me. But it's all circumstantial. It all is. And a lot of people like to bring up the Tom Brady debate. If he doesn't end up with the Patriots, is he the same? Maybe not. But maybe Bill Belichick isn't the same either. Things that are meant to work will work. Things that want to find a way to figure themselves out will figure themselves out. And it's very true when you look at the professional sports drafts. You never know what's going to happen. This is coming from a guy who loves watching the NFL draft every year. All my roommates can attest to this. All my friends that know me very well can attest to this. I follow the NFL draft all year round. Draft day is like my Christmas. I love it. But even I'm never going to be 100% right. I'd be lucky if I was half right most of the time. I never am. It's hard to pick the draft, but it's also hard to predict what those careers will end up being. But that's what makes sports fun. The unpredictability of it all, the parody of it all. It's awesome. But enough onto that. I want to talk about a little bit something more serious that happened over the past 2 days, and that involves Raiders wide receiver, or former wide receiver, Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs, on the morning of November 2nd, was driving 156 miles an hour with a 1.61 blood alcohol level, crashed into an oncoming car, killed a woman, killed a dog, was arrested, released from the Raiders. Now, obviously, this is a horrible situation, and my thoughts and prayers go out to that woman's family and everybody affected. It's a heartbreaking situation.
You never want to see something like that happen. Henry Ruggs, a guy who was drafted 12th overall just a little under 2 years ago, a very talented football player, came from a very storied college program in Alabama, drafted into a blue chip organization, or was at one point a blue chip organization in the Raiders, who are now in Las Vegas. For the life of me, I can't understand why somebody with that talent, that money, would put themselves in a position to go out and do something so reckless and ruin their lives that way. It amazes me. And he's not the first. He's not the first guy. He won't be the last guy to do something so stupid and so reckless and so dangerous that his football career and his life basically end in one bonehead decision. It's beyond me. I don't get it. And a lot of people make jokes about it on social media. Oh man, I just lost my number 2 receiver on fantasy. And it's easy to joke about things like this. People don't know how to react, but the reality of the situation is something very serious happened that early morning in Las Vegas. So a woman lost her life that day. And Henry Ruggs did an unexcusable mistake. And he's paying the price for it right now. He's in prison being held on bail. His football career is over. He was released by the Raiders the afternoon of the 3rd. So when I look back on this situation, I look back at other things that have happened. Most notably, Aaron Hernandez with the Patriots. Everybody knows that story. Everybody knows what he did. He paid the price for it. Was put in prison. First of all, horrible man. Horrible human being. But he lost his football career and his life because of doing things that he wasn't supposed to do. And we just talked about somebody like Johnny Manziel. Johnny Manziel, countless times, made the wrong decision. And he's not in the NFL anymore. Poor play didn't help his case, but also it's not like he was being a model citizen off the field. There's guys, and there are guys who make something of themselves even after making decisions that are the wrong decisions. The biggest name that comes to mind is Randy Moss. And for NFL fans that remember Randy Moss coming into the league, nobody wanted to draft him because of all the problems that happened off the field before he even got close to the NFL draft. Was supposed to go to Notre Dame, got arrested for a fight in his school. Notre Dame dropped him. Florida State picked him up. He spent his freshman year at Florida State. Got arrested again. Dropped from Florida State. Ended up at the time, Division I AA Marshall. Was arrested again, by the way. Marshall kept him. And these second and third arrests were drug-related, marijuana-related, which and now would not be as big of a deal as it was back in the 90s. And Marshall has a historic college career, one of the best college careers for a receiver ever. But coming into the league, everybody knew he was talented. Nobody wanted to touch him because of these mistakes. And Randy Moss's mistakes were different than some of these other mistakes that were made. Henry Ruggs is in a class of his own. Aaron Hernandez is in a class of his own. Randy Moss was arrested twice for weed, which in basically every part of the country is legal. So, looking back, not the biggest deal. When he was in high school and he was committed to Notre Dame, he got in a fight. It was a racially motivated fight where he was the major African-American kid involved. He was arrested. None of the white kids were arrested. So, his mistakes to me are different. But also, he grew from those mistakes. And sure, he did some immature things throughout his NFL career. Everybody remembers him fake mooning the Packers fans, which was hilarious. But not the right move. But he grew from that. There's a lot of guys that grew from that. James Harrison is another one. He was a highly rated high school prospect, and he made mistakes in high school that led to him walking out of Kent State. And he figured it out. He's a Hall of Fame player. He will be. So hopefully Henry Ruggs can figure it out. But he's not going to be in the NFL to figure it out. His career's done. It's heartbreaking to see, but there's no excuse for it. There's none. So I want to say I wish him well, but I don't know. Something like that is very hard to excuse. But we'll see how his career turns out or how his life turns out. Hopefully for the better. That was a pretty somber topic, so I kind of want to move on to something that I'm going to get really amped up about, and that was the college football playoff rankings that were released on the night of November 2nd. I have such a huge problem with the top 10, and I know a lot of people feel the same way. The SEC bias and the Alabama bias in the top two, not Georgia. We all know what school I'm talking about. It's those guys in Tuscaloosa with Nick Saban at the helm that consistently get the benefit of the doubt. And I know they're a good football team. I know they are a good football team. They should not be 2 right now. And over the course of the rest of the season, they'll have the chance to prove that they can be number 2. But right now, they don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. Michigan State should be number 2. And here's why. They have arguably right now the best player in college football, Kenneth Walker. The guy is a stud. He is transferred in from Wake Forest and is, in my opinion, the Heisman frontrunner. He should be the Heisman frontrunner. He's unbelievable. They just beat a top 10 Michigan football team. That is not easy to do. And still they're 3. Because Alabama has the benefit of the doubt. They have been consistently in the college football playoff. They haven't missed. They haven't missed the playoff since it started. And they're always going to get that benefit of being that team. So they're number 2 for right now. Of course, this is just the first, so it's not set in stone. At least I hope it's not set in stone. I don't want to see them again. I want to see something different. I know Michigan State has already been in it, but I want to see them in it again. I think that'd be cool. So they're 3 right now, though. Oregon's 4. Not a huge fan of that. They're 7-1, just like Alabama. They're in the Pac-12, Power 5 conference. They beat Ohio State, who's the number 5 team. All very impressive. But my problem is the fact that Cincinnati is at 6. They beefed up their schedule this year because everybody told them they had to, they'd never get in. They beat Indiana, who I know hasn't been good this year, but they were really good last year, and Cincinnati put them on the schedule. They beat Notre Dame, a top 10 Notre Dame football team. They're undefeated. Why do they not deserve to be in that top 4? Why do they not deserve that? They've been good. They've been good all year. They've been good for the last 3 years. They are a good football team. Desmond Ridder is a good quarterback. He's a great college quarterback. He's unbelievable. That team is unbelievable. They're going to have 2 or 3 first-round picks this year. They're good. They're really good. They deserve to be 4. They haven't lost. They have quality wins. Give them that ranking. I know their strength of schedule isn't great. But think about Clemson every year. Not this year, but every year. Playing the ACC, which arguably is the worst Power 5 conference in all of college football. They beat up on those garbage ACC teams, and they get the benefit of the doubt because they've been there before. And I know Cincinnati isn't Power 5. They've beaten good teams this year. They deserve to be in the top 4. That's my opinion. And then someone like Wake Forest, who is in the ACC, they're undefeated. They're sitting at 9 right now, which I'm sure to them and that group of kids and that staff and that school is a major accomplishment for a football team that has been horrendous for a very long time. As long as I can remember. I don't remember them ever being good. They're 9 right now. And my problem with that is they should be higher. They brought it up on Brandon Walker's podcast on Barstool. If Wake Forest's logo is not their own logo, but it's Clemson's logo, are they in the top 4? I think so. I think absolutely. Clemson beats up on the same teams every year, but they're Clemson, so they would get that top 4 spot. Wake Forest is undefeated in the ACC, has beaten those same teams. They haven't dominated every game, but it's hard to dominate every game. Just like how
Georgia hasn't completely dominated every game, at least not offensively. Defensively, pretty much, but not offensively. Alabama hasn't dominated every game. Ohio State hasn't dominated every game. Michigan State hasn't dominated every game. Why is Wake Forest being punished for being Wake Forest? They're in a Power 5 conference. They're undefeated. Their quarterback, Sam Hartman, who I know a lot of people remember from the second season of QB1, has been sensational. You know, I didn't love him on the show, by the way. I thought he was kind of a douche. But I can't hate on his play right now. He's been phenomenal. It's really fun to watch, especially since we all got a very close look at his journey on Netflix. It's very cool to see, at least in my opinion. So they should be higher. I think they should be higher. And I understand that it is the first ranking. It's not set in stone. It's going to change at some point, especially if Georgia and Alabama end up meeting in the SEC championship game, which I think they will. I don't see Georgia losing the rest of the year. I don't see Alabama losing any other games. But who knows? It's the parity of college football. Although the parity of college football has pretty much stayed away from the top 4. It's very consistently been Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, and whoever else you want to toss in. Ohio State for the most part. But Oklahoma, you saw what the College Football Playoff Committee did to Oklahoma. They're at 8. An undefeated Big 12 team who has consistently been in the College Football Playoff, they put it at 8, which I do like. Because I don't think they've shown they're a top 4 team or a top 6 team. They're a very talented team, and I'm loving the way Caleb Williams is playing. Love it. He's unreal. I've been following him for a very long time, at least very closely the past year when he was coming into Oklahoma. He was always on my Instagram feed, always. Just doing something mind-boggling. He was the number one recruit, or the number one quarterback recruit for a reason. He's talented, and I hate Spencer Rattler. And I know a lot of people feel the same way. Another guy who was on QB1, Season 3, Sam Hartman was a douche in that show, yeah. But he was not Spencer Rattler on that show. He was a nightmare to watch on Netflix. I couldn't stand him. And I couldn't understand why people liked him. I couldn't get it. Maybe because he's a good quarterback. But when I did my quarterback rankings initially in August for the 2021-2022 NFL Draft, I had Spencer Rattler 4. And not because of his talent, because he's very talented. But I didn't have him in that top 3 because of the type of person he comes across as. I don't know Spencer Rattler. Maybe if he was my buddy, I'd love the kid. I would. Maybe I would. I don't know him well enough. Clearly, I've never met him before. Just the way he comes across to people is not appealing, which is why I love that Caleb Williams is in there. And I think if they went out, which they should, I don't know if they will, but they should. If they went out, they'll be in that top 4. It's a good football team. Lincoln Riley is an outstanding head coach. I hope he never goes to the NFL. I hate when college coaches do that. Although, I mean, when I'm a big Jets fan, when I was following their coaching search, I really wanted Matt Campbell from Iowa State, another Big 12 team. I really wanted Matt Rule at one point when he was at Baylor. But I've seen, and I've come to realize now I don't like college coaches going to the NFL. Unless they're a certain type of college coach. Lincoln Riley is an offensive mastermind. I just don't know if he's an NFL coach. I don't want to see his career and legacy ruined by it. I love that Urban Meyer's career has been ruined by it. I've never been a big fan of Urban Meyer. But I don't want to see him go to the NFL. But that's besides the point. Oklahoma will be in the top 4 if they win out. Georgia will be in that top 4 if they win out. Oregon, if they win out, should be in it. So let's just put into perspective Oregon, Georgia, Oklahoma. Let's say they win out. Those are your 3 teams. Those are 3 of those teams. And if Georgia wins out, let's assume that they beat Alabama. So they're out now. So who is then that 4th team? Would it be Cincinnati or would it be Ohio State? Or would it be Michigan State? It all depends. If Michigan State wins out, it's that team. If Ohio State beats them in the Big Ten Championship, is it Ohio State or is it an undefeated Cincinnati? That's pretty much how this is going to work out. 3 teams are set if they win out. Again, Georgia, Oklahoma, Oregon. Power 5 teams who are either A, undefeated, or B, one loss, like Oregon would have. That last spot is all going to come down to the Big Ten championship game if Ohio State and Michigan State meet with 0 and 1 loss. That's what it comes down to. And if Ohio State wins that game, but not impressively, Cincinnati would get that spot. And I hope they do. I would love to see Cincinnati in that spot. We've been making jokes about it with my lacrosse team since I've been here on campus and in Dobbs Ferry, which is where my school is. We love Cincinnati. And it's mostly just to piss off Notre Dame guys because everybody here is a Notre Dame guy. And Jack Gibbons, I'm talking about you. Notre Dame sucks, man. Don't like them. Cincinnati should be in that conversation at least. They deserve to be. They have worked so hard as a football team to get there. And Luke Fickell is another great coach. I hope he doesn't leave Cincinnati. I don't want him to go to USC or LSU or any of these schools. I want him to stay. I think it'd be cool to see a new power rise up within the college football rankings. And they're going to the Big 12 in 2 years. They'll be a Power 5 team eventually. Let's see how they do against Oklahoma and Iowa State and Texas. I'm sorry, not Texas. Wow, holy crap. Texas and Oklahoma are going to be gone in 2 years. Forget it. Still, I'd like to see him stay. With the USC job, I really want them to hire Jeff Fisher. I think that'd be so cool. Who doesn't love Jeff Fisher? I mean, classic 8-8 guy, and he has a killer mustache. Killer mustache. That'd be cool to see. But listen, guys, thank you again for watching. I promise I'm going to keep this page updated. Make sure to follow along. Tell your friends about it. That'd be awesome. I'd love to get more viewers, but of course, not a big deal. Doesn't matter. See you guys next week. Thank you.